You're listening to Your Magical Midlife. This podcast is for women who are seekers, dreamers, and out-of-the-box thinkers. If you're a Gen X woman who never quite fit in, and probably never will, listen up. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and coach, and I'm here to guide you through the expansive, exhilarating, and sometimes exhausting crossroads that we find ourselves in at midlife. Whether you're a seasoned listener or just joining the adventure, think of this podcast as your hot pink convertible cruising down the highway of change. Together we'll navigate the sometimes baffling backroads of midlife and collect all the cool souvenirs along the way. Get in and buckle up. Our map may have flown out the window miles ago, but that doesn't mean we aren't going to have a blast. Let's hit the road and discover the magic just around the bend. Wiley Women is a wellness brand that wants you to live your best midlife. Developed by a naturopath, they offer tinctures, supplements, and drink mixes. Wiley uses plant medicine and clinical studies to demystify and embrace the hormonal powers and hidden complexities of grown women from the inside. Female formulated and female founded. Plus, they offer free shipping and easy returns. I love the Unworried tincture, which has bacopa, holy basil, passion flower, and reishi. It helps calm my body and stops the spinouts. It reduces jitters and lightens my mood. Go to www.wileywomen.com and use code KATEH2O at checkout to get 20% off. That's www.wileywomen.com and use code KATEH2O for 20% off. Brigit Esselmont is a best-selling author, intuitive entrepreneur, tarot expert, and teacher. You might know her under the Biddy Tarot. I am thrilled to have her on today's episode to discuss her new book, Intuitive Manifestation, and how you can use the tarot to bring in anything that you desire into your life. Brigit, how are you? Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm well. It's early morning here, so my voice is just starting to get warmed up, but it's great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. So tell everybody a little bit about how you got into the tarot in the first place.
Yeah, so I've always considered myself quite spiritual, and even in my teenage years, I used to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning and do some candle gazing. I would do my little extrasensory perception cards where you get to flip them and guess what's on the other side. And I was really trying to develop all of my psychic and intuitive skills. And it was a little bit touch and go, to be honest. Didn't quite switch on straight away, but I had such a fascination in all things spiritual. And then when I was 17, I was heading over to Germany on a high school exchange, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go and get a tarot reading and find out what's going to happen on this high school exchange. And so went in, walked up these creaky old wooden stairs, sit down with this lady who's could barely even see her. It's in this dark room, and she starts laying out the cards, and she pulls the Emperor card. I'm like, oh, okay, what's that mean? She's like, oh, you're going to fall in love in Germany. And I'm like, oh, surely you just tell that to everyone, this has got to be whatever. But lo and behold, I go to Germany, I fall in love, and I have a great time. And I came back to Australia, and I thought, maybe I could learn this tool of tarot. This will be a fun party trick for my friends. But then as I started to get more and more into tarot, I could see everything that I'd learned, even just as a teenager, through this spiritual journey that I was on, was all culminating in these 78 cards. And the more I read about the cards, the more I learned about them. I was like, wow, this is so much more than just a fortune-telling tool like what we see in the movies. There's something so much deeper and more profound in these cards. And that's really what got me so hooked. I could not stop. I literally would spend hours in my bedroom, reading all the books, pulling all the cards, And I just really desperately wanted to know more about the tarot. So that was really the beginning of this like lifelong journey with the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so in agreement with you. I think the tarot is a doorway. It's a portal into our subconscious, into our psyches. I think it's Jungian. I think it's Freudian. I think it's the hero's journey in so many ways. I personally read on the mythic tarot, which is based on the Greek myths, and the cards really tie very well into them. I think the tarot is really just a way for us to receive messages that are universal and apply them to our own specific circumstances.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm seeing that kind of, that portal into our collective consciousness. It's a way of accessing that. And then what's neat is, like portals always have one side and they have another. And what I'm just seeing now is like on one side is our collective wisdom, our collective consciousness, but also on the other side is our inner wisdom and our internal consciousness. And that's what I love about tarot is that it is both being able to like learn, traditional meanings, what do all those symbols mean and where do they all come from and so on. But then also using tarot as a way to reflect like what's going on in my own internal awareness and what's my intuition trying to tell me. And so it's this beautiful balance between both that we get with tarot.
So tell me, how did you go from a young girl learning the tarot to being this entrepreneur who uses the tarot, and you don't make like a little living from it. This isn't your side hustle. This is your full-time job. How did that happen? That's like everybody's dream, right? Is to find something they love and make it their life's work. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, it was really, it's a long journey. I've been doing this for 25 years and a lot of people think about the overnight success. It's definitely not that, right? So 1999, I was studying at university. I was, planning on becoming a town planner. Then I switched and I was doing commerce degree and went on to do honors. And so I'm having this kind of academic experience that was very, cut and dried, and I enjoyed it. I'm an academic person. I love school and so on. But at the same time, I was like, I had this creative, spiritual part of myself that was just desperate to be expressed in some way. So 1999 is when I decided like, oh, I'll just learn how to write HTML and create a website. And I just started posting, what I was learning about tarot, because I thought maybe if I'm learning this, someone else might find it. It took, a good, I was in corporate for 10, 15 years. And during that time, it was definitely just a fun side hobby. I mean, I still had, I was working on it over the weekends. I would create a weekly newsletter. I was doing professional readings. By 2015 or so, I'd read for 10,000 clients worldwide. So I was still very active in that, but I was running these kind of double lives of corporate plus Biddy Tarot. And it was 2012 when I decided that I would finally leave corporate and dedicate myself fully to Biddy Tarot. And then from that place, things really did start to grow and evolve very quickly. And 2013, I'd hired my first team member. Now we have a team of 15. And, I just started to pay attention to those breadcrumbs and those intuitive signals that said, if you're loving this, Brigit, just keep doing more of it because this is what's going to create the abundance. And so I started offering tarot courses. Now we have books, we have tarot decks, all of the things. Really just following what feels good and energizing, and not necessarily going oh, I want to create a business in tarot. I better create a business plan and decide all of these things. I just really have trusted the flow. Of course, now we're in a bit more of a committed system. So I do need to be more planned and structured. And this really is a typical passion project that I have started and that's grown into what it is today, where, we literally do serve millions of people. We're a 7-figure business. We have 15 people on our team that we're supporting and, tens of thousands of students, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really inspiring. I mean, I'm at the beginning of my entrepreneur journey and I get so overwhelmed and fall asleep at the wheel when someone wants to talk to me about funnels and a strategic plan, and I've not done anything in my life that way. And I love hearing that you followed your heart. I'm sure all the other things are underneath you, because you can't have a 7-figure business without some kind of structure and plan. I don't think that's possible. But it makes me feel so happy to hear that this is really what you loved and you followed your heart all the way through it. And
Yeah.
the help showed up along the way, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think for me, what is my kind of unique magic source is that I am so deeply spiritual. That's incredibly important to me, but I'm also very strategic, and I have a business mind, and it's just, I almost like any idea that comes into my space, I can always think about how to monetize it or, turn it into a business no matter what. So it's rare to find people who have that kind of connection, that intersection between business and spirituality. So that's been an absolute blessing for me. And it's what lights me up, both of those worlds.
Yeah. And I also want you to speak to, if you could, because I completely nodded so hard, I almost fell off this chair, the difficulty in living 2 lives at once. Because especially when you left your job, Tarot has become sort of mainstream, sort of, but not really. Not really. People really don't understand it now, even. People think that you're, dabbling with dark forces or whatever. A lot of regular people. My mother was certainly very freaked out when I started to read. My family is very Catholic, and my mother was afraid I was like putting the, hex on people or whatever. And I worked in psychiatry, and I didn't want people to think that I was crazy. So I had 2 very distinct lives. I had the life where I went in and I was a psychiatric social worker, and then I was reading people on the side. I was doing psychic fairs and corporate gigs and all those things, but I didn't want people to judge me. So it takes a lot of courage to step out of the matrix and choose your own happiness. Was it you at the time? Was it scary?
Yeah, 100%. And, you and I are not alone. Like, I know so many people experience this. And it really is a journey and a pathway, I think, to something that is a place of empowerment. But yeah, for me, when I was working in corporate, I really didn't want anyone to know that I'm doing tarot on the side, because I had no idea what they would think. And that's really how the name Biddy Tarot came about, because Biddy is just like a nickname for Brigit. And I used Biddy as like my pseudonym whenever I was doing tarot. So tarot readings and so on. It became the website name and the brand. But I really just did not want my professional corporate life to cross over too much with the tarot world. But what was interesting is, like, when you're really passionate about something, you can't help but talk about it here and there. And I would every now and then, someone that I would trust in my corporate space, I remember talking with some of my clients when I was doing management consulting, and I was working with a team in a large corporate. And we were becoming we were good friends and so on, as well as like colleagues. And I started saying to them, oh, I read tarot. And they're like, oh my goodness, you read tarot. And they were so excited. And so we'd do tarot readings together. I was like, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is, out there. And so little by little, I would just start seeding with people that I met along the way. Oh, I read tarot. And I even remember being at some, business function. I'm wearing my suit, my heels. Everyone's like in gray or blue. And I just started telling this older gentleman, oh yeah, I read tarot. And he's like, what? Oh, me too. And he's joining in. And I started to find this place where actually, there is a place to talk about tarot. There are people that really love it. And I finally got to that point where I thought, okay, I think I'm ready to finally change my LinkedIn profile. That was actually a really big milestone for me, was to change the LinkedIn profile to say that I have this Biddy Tarot business and start to redefine my identity. And I found too, sometimes I'd have conversations and I'd say, oh, I read tarot. And I literally, one time I had this woman, she'd asked me what I did. And I said, I read tarot. She just got up. She didn't say a thing. She got up. She walked away. She did not come back. I'm like, what? This is crazy. And over time, I just started to build up more and more confidence, though, in what I was doing, the impact that I was having. and the positive role that I was playing with the work I was doing with tarot. And the more confident I became, the more likely people were to go, oh, that's really interesting. And, nowadays I can talk with entrepreneurs and business owners of, like multi-million, $100 million businesses. And I can get them starting to use the tarot cards because I believe in it so much now. And I can inspire other people to go, oh, tell me more about like tarot. Oh, I thought it was something else. And I think that is, that's that journey to empowerment, because we start off going like, oh, everyone's going to judge me and people think tarot is something weird. But it's actually when we start to own the power of tarot and we go, you know what, there's actually something really cool to this. And I'm going to claim it and I'm going to share it and people are going to love it. And, from that place is where a lot of that inspiration really grows.
Absolutely. The people who are new to tarot or the people that you were teaching back then, you know how sometimes people, they're afraid of the cards. They're afraid of the info. They think that the cards have some kind of supernatural, like that they're going to get, a bad reading or they're going to get information that scares them. How do you address it? I know how I address it when I'm reading somebody, but what do you do?
You know what? I actually start from a place of like, hey, it's so normal to think that tarot cards are evil or they're going to do bad things, because have a look at TV shows, have a look at movies, look at media. Earlier this year, we're in 2024, a new movie comes out that's called Tarot. And guess what? It's a horror movie where everyone drops dead because they're reading tarot cards. Like, of course, people are going to think that tarot is evil and scary and so on. And so, yeah, I really love to start at that place and say, look, we've been kind of conditioned by society to think that these intuitive tools are evil, but question that, like, look at that. Why is that? Why are we trying to take away intuition when actually we should be creating more intuition in our lives and connecting more with it? But then even like more specifically with tarot reading, like cards don't do anything there, look, it's just cardboard. They've got pictures on them. I mean, yes, there are magical powers. We know that, but but it really is just, pictures, and it's what you decide with your mind of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. We ultimately hold the power. And I think this is true too of if you're using tarot as a fortune telling tool, you're giving your power away because you're going, oh, well, this thing's going to happen to me in the future. I can't do anything about it. Poor me, right? Goodbye power. But if you look at, well, what's happening right now? What do I want to create? And how can I get there? And then tarot sort of helps you see, oh, here's some opportunities, here's some challenges, here's how you can get to what you want. Fantastic, high power, we're back, So I think there's, a few different perception shifts that we need to make. And it's so normal that the general public have these certain views because, again, we've been indoctrinated that way.
Absolutely. And I think people are afraid to reveal information that they already know deep down. And I think people all the time, like, they're like, don't tell me anything bad. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know, like deep down. If you know that your boyfriend's a creep and that's what comes up, then it's just information and it helps you make decisions based on something deep down you just don't want to look at. And it's better to know than to be in the dark, because then you can make decisions based on bringing things to light.
Yeah, and it's interesting that just as being it's a choice point about how you live life, right? You could live life in I only want good things to happen. I believe that's a distortion. It's not true, because life is a wonderful full spectrum, of good and bad. And I always think of cards like the Tower or the 10 of Swords when someone's asking about a relationship, and as a reader, you go, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm seeing like this relationship. Oh, it's coming to an end. And then I've had experiences where the person on the other side has gone, yes, I'm so glad because this is the crappiest relationship I've had. I'm like, wow, okay, do you see, Brigit? You mentioned just be trusting these cards. You never know. We can't really determine as readers like what's good and bad. And equally for our clients, it might be, maybe it's traumatic and unwanted to have a breakup. But what if that breakup leads to the best relationship of their life on the other side, right? And that really is what life is about. Life is these beautiful series of synchronistic events that take us from, good to bad to good. And this is the joy of living.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think using tarot in that way just really supports a full spectrum life.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about, because I haven't ever really come across anybody who specifically uses the cards for manifestation. Can you talk to me about that process? I know that you wrote a book about it, and we will talk about that more. But tell me a little bit about, is that a specific spread that you use, or is it a process?
Yeah, I actually feel like using tarot as a tool for manifestation is almost just like a way of being, a mindset whenever you pick up the cards. And it even comes out into simple things of what you choose to ask the cards. So if you want to ask the cards more closed-ended questions like, will I get the job I want? Or, when will I go and get a house? Things like that. Then that's typically more about, my future is set in stone and there's not really anything I can do to make it happen, similar to what we were talking about earlier. But if you approach your cards with more open-ended questions even, and you're asking, well, what could I do to manifest that, dream home that I have in mind? Or what opportunities or challenges are ahead of me? Even what are the characteristics I'm looking for in a new home? Then we're starting to go, hey, universe, I'm accepting responsibility for my present and my future. And from that place is where I can really start to manifest things. So using tarot for manifestation is, a matter of what are we asking our cards? Are we coming at it from a place of knowing and accepting that we have a role in our lives to shape it the way that we want it, and being open-minded to, again, that full spectrum? Because even when you're asking things like, what do I need to do to manifest a home? You might get some things that are a little bit tough, a little bit uncomfortable. It might be like, well, actually, I realize that I need to save more money and therefore I've got to kind of pinch on the dollars, and that means I can't go and do all these other things that I really wanted to do. But that just shows you, if you want this particular goal, here's your path towards it. And at the end of the day, we get to make choices about that. We can go, okay, well, do I really value that dream home enough such that I can make this choice of, saving on every dollar and so on? Or do I not actually value that as much? And maybe I want to go in this different pathway. So it's really coming back to that choice.
And also, it sounds to me, if I could sort of interpret what you said, is that you teach people how to be empowered from the tarot instead of seeing it as an outside power, an entity that's going to give them information. You're teaching people to work in conjunction with their highest self through the cards. Yeah?
Yes, 100%. Yes. And even, when I'm teaching our students how to do tarot readings for others, one of the biggest things I have to move past is, a lot of people think a tarot reading is a one-way conversation. You come to see me, the all-knowing tarot reader, so therefore I'll pull cards and I'll tell you exactly what they mean and how it's going to transpire in your life, and you sit there patiently absorbing all the information. But that's a completely different way of reading cards. I like to teach that it's actually about a conversation. It's co-creating this reading. In fact, the client should be talking more than the reader, because that is where the true transformation happens. I would rather, you as a client, you're experiencing these breakthroughs and aha moments and realizations, because that way you're empowered to take action and lead your life the way that you want it. And even, that's why I love teaching tarot, because I think the more that we learn how to read our own cards, the more that we empower ourselves. Instead of going to someone else, oh, hey, tarot reader, please tell me what's going to happen. We're actually coming back and going, I think I got the answers. I know my inner wisdom is really strong here.
A lot of people, especially women, have a hard time really trusting their intuition. Why do you think that is?
I'm thinking, how far do we go?
Go as far as you want.
Oh man, think about it. Over centuries, we have been persecuted. We've been put down, demonized in so many ways for accessing our intuition. All of the burning the witches and so on is so much about that. And even though we are a couple of 100 years out from that, it's carried generationally, it's carried in our DNA and our collective memory. And, even I'd say, yeah, even up till recently, like any kind of mention of, oh, you're using your intuition, like that's not scientific. How could you even do that, And how can you even prove that? We've got to understand that sometimes science might actually be a mindset as well, just as intuition is a mindset. It's not a kind of black and white yes or no space. And yeah, so I just think that over time we've been really conditioned to think that using intuition is silly and not worthwhile, and to push it aside and to instead listen to authority, listen to the institutions, because that's easier to control a society from that angle. If we all were like trusting our intuition, oh my goodness, whoa, we'd all have agency and we'd all have empowerment, and what a scary world that could be, right?
Beautiful world that would be. As a woman in midlife, when I was younger, when I still was bleeding, I don't bleed anymore. I was very connected to like using certain parts of my cycle to my intuition. But now that I don't have that seat anymore, I actually feel like I'm more intuitive. I feel like as I get older, my intuition is growing. What do you think that's like true and valid, that women just deepen and ripen with their intuition? Or do you think that maybe that's just me? Or do you think this is like a universal trend or a universal story?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everyone's journey with their own intuition is personal and unique. I'm still bleeding, and so I don't have a personal experience of, what's that next phase look like for me. But if I think even about my own personal journey with intuition, yeah, it's just constantly deepening. And I'm now 45, and I just find that there's, so much more trust and knowingness in intuition, to the point at which I don't care if someone goes, ugh, you're trusting your intuition. Like, that's so dumb. Like, oh, sorry for you. Like, sorry you're missing out. That's too bad, And because I talk a lot about like intuition with entrepreneurship. And for some people that is so like, oh, why on earth would you operate a business from intuition? But I'm like, why wouldn't you? Like, it's a superpower. It's actually, I believe, one of the keys to the success of Biddy Tarot is that we're operating more and more intuitively and more from this divine feminine energy. So yeah, for me, it's just really deepened, and I can feel myself, stepping into it just more and more. And maybe that's the experience you're having too. It's like, it's just a beautiful, powerful deepening and trusting. And yeah, it'd be interesting being like off a cycle, because I know, my cycles definitely impact me in many ways.
Yeah.
And to be out of a cycle, I wonder, like, does that make everything a bit smoother and more linear, or is it, curious.
It feels more consistent, It's more like, now that my body's not using that energy to create that cycle, it's now just sort of like, oh, I'm constantly sort of in the up here instead of cycling in a circle. I'm more at the top.
That sounds good.
Which is really
have that.
But I was so afraid that all of my intuition and psychic abilities would just dissipate. I don't know why. I think it was just anxiety, because it was just a tumultuous part of my life, portion of my life, that I'm very relieved that it seems to just have deepened. And I would never have been brave enough before all of that happened to me to leave my corporate job. Never, ever, ever. So, I wasn't able to step into that total trust in the universe, that fool energy, where you step off the cliff and you trust that, the universe has you, God has you, you're going to be okay. But I knew the day I quit my job, like I felt it I almost heard it. Like, you got this, you're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm just thinking too, like many of our tarot community, and I was saying this before we started too, many people come and find tarot in their late teens or early 20s, similar to what you and I did. And then there's also a group of like women who tend to find tarot at that sort of 40 to 50 year like mark. And yeah, it could be an interesting parallel with stepping into perimenopause and menopause, because I think, women at this age, at this midlife point, are kind of just sick of doing what they thought, like doing what they've been told to do, right? And what you convince people, like convince you and condition you to think that living life is a certain way. But then you start to realize like, no, that doesn't really suit me. That's a distorted way of living. And we start to reclaim our power in different ways. And, whether that looks like reclaiming your intuition, inner wisdom, a little bit more of that, personal agency. And many women, older women, are drawn to tarot because it is a gateway. It's a way to access inner power quite easily through the cards.
Do you read on the same deck consistently, or do you use different decks?
I tend to use similar decks. Probably I'm quite a methodical, consistent person. But I'm looking over here because I've got a good like 30, 40 different tarot decks available. But no, I tend to read. I read with my own. Oh, I haven't even got the little box, but this is the Biddy Tarot deck that we have here. I use that a lot. And I do really love, there's an Osho Zen Tarot. I don't know if you know it.
I don't.
But,
what's it called?
It's Osho Zen.
Okay.
And it's such a powerful deck. It's still based on tarot, but it's not, it has like some different connections with it, but it is so profound and so powerful.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Do you have a favorite card?
Yes. High Priestess for me. And in fact, so much so I have it, I can't lift my shoulder, but I have it tattooed on my arm.
Oh my
I
God.
have her.
Oh, she's beautiful. There. Oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah. So I've journeyed with the High Priestess very intimately in these last sort of 18 months. She's come to me in many different ways. And I just really feel her now flowing through me. And such a powerful card because High Priestess is obviously very intuitive. I love that she just she sits there very quietly watching things happen. She's got this scroll in her arms, which is like the answers to everything, but she just keeps it to herself. It's just, she's accessing her own inner wisdom. And she sits behind like these two pillars, and it's almost like this kind of sheer curtain, which is this dance between dimensions and realms and worlds. And, whether it's the conscious and subconscious, whether it's traveling on different time dimensions, space dimensions, and so on. I just love that idea of this High Priestess being able to work through many different realms. Definitely, connect well with her. What about for you? Who's your favorite card?
Currently, I go through phases. My current favorite card is the Empress because I feel like I'm in the Empress phase of life. I have this concept that I'm working out and working for a program around where I'm connecting different cards to different phases of a woman's life. And I feel like the Empress is that perimenopause, postmenopause phase before you step into the crone wise woman phase. I don't feel like I'm quite there. I feel like I'm in this Empress phase. So right now I'm really connecting with the Empress.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, interesting. Most women I know either High Priestess or Empress. Those are I think the two favorites. Yeah. I did have someone say, "Oh, I love the Tower card." I'm like, "What? Really?" Because, the Tower is about chaos and destruction, everything like coming down. And she's like, "No, you know what? I see it as liberation." Absolutely. And that we are like liberating ourselves from all of the structures and our ego. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds brilliant. I love it. Okay. And now I can see it.
Yeah. There are times I even love the Death card. I'm like, it's good. It's good. It's good to shed the skin and let go of things and know that there's a dawn coming tomorrow. Like there's always a dawn tomorrow and there's a new life to step into, but you do have to let go of what you were hanging on to and clinging to so deeply.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I've learned to love all like the quote unquote bad cards, like I used to be terrified of the 5 of Cups, or terrified of the 5 of Pentacles, or terrified of the 10 of Swords. But the longer I've been reading, I'm like, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good to let go of things. It's good to have life knock you a little bit, because you learn. If everything was always good all the time, and it was always, the Star, and it was always, the 10 of Cups, like you wouldn't learn anything, like what's the point if you aren't experiencing the whole spectrum, as you said?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I always think it's interesting if there are cards in the tarot deck that you're like, ugh, when you see it, get curious. Like, why is that? What am I put off by? Why do I feel uncomfortable, by the 5 of Cups? What is it about that? And where can I find my comfort in that? What is it trying to show me? Because I used to have an aversion to the Hierophant. And again, for those of you who don't know about the Hierophant, it's kind of like this all-knowing like priest, and he's got his disciples sitting in front of him, and he gets to tell them what to do and so on. Often quite a religious, institutionalized type card. And I realized I was having this aversion because I was like, I'm not into religion. Like, it's not for me. And I was like, no, hang on, let's take a look at this. What are some positive aspects of having, a teacher and being able to teach certain doctrines and certain ways of doing things? Because you think about Hierophant comes right before the Lovers, and the Lovers is all about making decisions for yourself, choosing the higher path, having your own set of values so that you can make good choices. And I was like, Hierophant is actually teaching people the base level of how to make choices and values. Like with my teenage girls, I'm like, I'm going to teach you some stuff first, and then you can decide what you want to do. But I'm going to impart my wisdom, and you will listen. But then you can decide what you want to do from there.
Your daughters read?
We used to do quite a bit together. In fact, I used to love doing like story card, like story kind of telling with the cards. And like literally what we'd do, we'd pull like 2 or 3 cards each, and then we'd go around in a circle. This is great if you've got kids and you want to play with tarot. Like, let's just say, there we go. We've got the Hierophant in this random card pool. But let's just say the 3 of us, they're almost like pictures of a storybook. And you would just start by telling this story, a 3-page story. And we've got the Magician, like, there was once a man who had the power to make anything happen with all of his tools that were available to him. But then one day he started to realize that things weren't quite as they seemed. And he was this hanged man, and he's went upside down to look at the world very differently. And then he started to realize from there that Hierophant, he was ready to teach people all of the things that he had learned, not just be doing them, but now he realized he was a teacher. It's so interesting, isn't it?
That's amazing. And that's also a really good way to teach other people how to read the cards.
Oh, yeah. And, even if this is what I tell our students, if you're doing, say, a party reading and it's like fast, you've got 5 minutes to pull cards, like literally go and pull 3 cards and let each one just tell the story, because then you can go, then what happens next after he's a teacher? Oh, well, then he realizes that maybe he doesn't know as much as he knows, and because we've got the Emperor reversed here. And so Emperor normally is about like power and authority, but reversal might be like coming off your throne a little bit. Maybe he realized he didn't have all the answers. Oh gosh. And then we've got the 5 of Wands, and then so now there's a bit of chaos. But maybe from that, he realizes, here we go. 3 of Pentacles. He's got to learn to listen to others. He's not the all-knowing one. It's just fun. Like, I think this is the thing with tarot, is just to play.
Right.
And enjoy. And like, it's such a good way to like learn to read the cards, is just play with them and tell stories from them.
Do you read for yourself every day? Do you pull a card every day, or do you pull several cards a day? Like, or not at all? No,
I don't pull a card a day. I think it's the most wonderful thing to pull a card a day. And it's what I recommend to most people, especially when they're starting out, because it carves out that time to connect with your tarot cards, but also your intuition. But for me, I find myself pulling cards more when maybe I'm at a crossroads, or I'm having some feelings that I'm like, I don't really know where those feelings are coming from, and I want to get a little bit deeper. Or even with work, business, sometimes I'm like, what do we choose vendor A or vendor B? And we pull some cards to see out of that. Yeah.
Like who would be the better vendor for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And, what might we experience? If we go down this path, what might we experience? And if we did this, what might we experience too? So, yes, lots of different ways.
Have you personally used your own intuitive manifesting method?
Oh, I think all the time. Yes. So just a short kind of overview of like the intuitive manifesting methods, 4 steps, very simple, but actually very profound when we overlay the concept of intuition with it. And so it starts by just getting really clear on your core desires. You might go, oh, yeah, well, I've heard that before. But I think where it takes it a step further is we're not just thinking about what is it that I really want, my dream home and so on, but what is it that is aligned with my highest self and my highest potential? So many years ago, at the early stages of growing my business, I was trying to work out what would be my next financial goal. And I thought, okay, well, it would be really cool if I could create like maybe 250,000 in the business. And I was like, okay, I could have stopped there and then done all of my manifesting on that. But I thought, no, I'm going to check in with tarot. And so I said, okay, what if it was 250? What if I went crazy and got to like 500,000? And what if I just played it kind of and did the same as the previous year and got, say, 200,000, whatever. And so I pulled the cards and I thought, oh, surely tarot is going to reward me for being really ambitious and going big with that 500, because we hear it all the time. And I pulled the cards and it was like, oh, if I go for 500,000, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to be burnt out and I'm not going to have time for family. I'm going to feel resentful. And if I go at like 200,000, I'm going to feel like I'm playing small. It's not really engaging for me. And then the picture for the 250 was like, I think it was Queen of Pentacles. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Okay, I have my message. So that's overlaying that intuitive aspect is we can find our core desires and our goals that are most aligned to our highest good and our highest potential. And then the second step is becoming, like, not rushing into action, but first being before doing. And so many times in manifesting, we think, oh, it's all about doing, like get out there and take the action. And yes, action's important. But what I've learned over time is that it's actually more important to get into the being state, to be your future self now and embody that now and then take the action. And so tarot works beautifully here. I've seen it time and time again. And with my clients, we step into that vision of success in the future. And then it's like, well, who are you becoming when you achieve, maybe a perfect relationship or a career? Who is it that you have become? And what are those qualities and those characteristics that you have? And then we choose a tarot card that resembles that. So maybe it's the sun card. Oh, yes, I'm feeling the joy and the contentment and the happiness, the freedom, the innocence, all of those good things. And so then we take that sun card and we go, all right, what if we install that sun card now into our DNA and our energetic field? And so we do a process with that too, so that every time you're thinking about your goal or you're about to take action, you first step into that tarot archetype, you become it, and then you take action. And all the action stuff becomes so much easier because you've already embodied so many of those qualities. And, like we were talking about before, the tarot cards are so connected to collective consciousness that we're not just tapping into a part of ourselves, we're tapping into a much wider, system, a matrix that is then supporting us in that journey.
Right.
So,
all the human themes that everybody grapples with, right? Everything, a person with a soul, right? We all come up against all the same things in different ways. And the tarot helps us navigate through those things.
Yeah. And, the cards can be our partners. When I explain this to people, they're like, oh my gosh, I've never thought of tarot. Like, I thought I would have to pull cards for a tarot reading. But like, they're absolute powerful allies in this manifestation journey. Even when we step into like step 3, which is the taking action, but it's also about clearing away any limiting beliefs and blocks. And this is where I think tarot is super powerful too, because if I asked you, oh, what are your limiting beliefs about maybe entrepreneurship? And you'd go, let me think about it. And you your wonderful brain and your conscious mind would come up with some stuff and you'd go, great. Then we'd go, okay, well, let's have a look at the tarot cards and see what's really underlying all of that. Because tarot is speaking to our subconscious and it's helping us access a deeper part of ourselves. And let's see, oh, okay, here we go. So I'll just put a random card and we get the Six of Pentacles. And I might ask you, well, what do you see in this card that tells you about some of your limiting beliefs? And you might go, oh, well, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as the man giving away the money? Or are you one of the beggars like going, please pay me, and so on? And so we might explore, what does that mean for you?
I think I'm on right now. I feel like I'm on my knees, but I'm hoping to flip that. But it's good to be aware of it, right? That you always feel like you're the one who's leading. Yeah.
Awesome. And you see that, yeah, because we're extracting it from the subconscious. We're bringing it into the conscious awareness, which is the place where you can take action on it. If it's stuck in the subconscious, you can't act on it. And so even just having the awareness, then we might talk about, well, how might you transform from being on your knees to being the one that's actually giving? Or even what could a more empowered version of these people asking for the money, what's a more empowered version of them? How else might they request that money, but without having to be in a begging state? And we could talk through that, and then you could start to see how that shifts and change your reality around it.
So then what's the fourth step?
Right. So fourth step is then really amplifying the results. And I know this, again, sounds awfully cliche, but things like having positive affirmations actually is very beneficial because it takes those limiting beliefs that you might have and it reframes them. It turns them into something that's a much more of an empowering statement. We start to shift the reality. We kind of play with our minds and shift our reality. But it's also another part to this is the trust and surrender. So, when it comes to taking action, we might have the best laid plans and think, well, okay, I'm going to go from point A to point B and it's going to go like this, 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 this. But we know what really happens is we kind of get halfway and then we go, our intuition tells us, actually, I think it's this way instead of that way. And we need to adjust and adapt. Maybe the universe has its own sense of timing and things will take a little bit longer to manifest. And so that trust and surrender is not being too attached to the outcome, but going back to what is it that you're desiring and how can you support those desires to come into fruition, no matter what the actual manifestation of them is. Because sometimes we might think, oh, well, I actually desire freedom. I thought it was going to be this, dream house, but now my intuition is showing me that freedom is going to come through in a different way. And you start to follow that path. So that's that trust and surrender piece.
Do people have to be like expert tarot readers to use this method?
No. And this is, the one, we've just been playing here in such a simple way of just looking at the pictures. That's basically all you need to do. And, there are fabulous sites like biddytarot.com that happen to have really amazing tarot card meanings. So you can always just go there and look up what a card means. But yeah, you get started. It's so interesting to see how easily it comes to people when they just know a few different techniques to use with the tarot and with manifesting. Yeah, it's much easier.
So it's the book and then there's also a course, correct? Is there a course?
Yeah, so we have, intuitive manifesting, an online course. And I think the best way to get started, if you listen to these 4 steps, you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. We have a free guide to these 4 steps of intuitive manifesting. So you can get that over at biddytarot.com/4 steps. And you'll get access to those 4 steps. I talk in more depth about what each one is about. And you also have the opportunity to get the intuitive manifesting book if you would like. And and also the course.
When is the book released?
Oh, it is October 22nd, 2024. So you'll either be getting it as pre-order or we get it afterwards.
And then there's all these freebies that they also get if they pre-order, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We have a lot of bonuses. You go into the running to win a private coaching session with me, which I'm really excited about. We're doing a virtual event as well, a Q&A, an author Q&A, so we can chat. And we have, I think there's some maybe masterclasses, meditations and so on as well.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I actually signed up for all of the things, and I'm so excited. I don't want to keep you forever and ever, so I'm going to go into my lightning round and just ask you some quick questions to make it fun. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Do you have anything in your coffee, or do you drink it black?
I like to have oat milk and a few medicinal mushrooms as well to keep it healthy.
Nice. You have a snack with your coffee?
No, I don't.
Do you have a favorite snack?
Oh, well, if I'm being a bit naughty, yes, it would be like some chocolate. But otherwise, even just a rice cracker with like homegrown avocado and some salt on it, I think is so delicious. Yeah.
Delicious. I love it. Do you have a song that sums up like this period of your life? I know it's or a Tarot song that you like. Are there even Tarot songs? Probably not. I don't know any off the top of my head.
Oh, do you know, actually, yeah, there's a group called Yama. I don't know if you've heard of Yama. Yeah. And so they're creating a whole series of songs based on the tarot cards. I listened to their High Priestess one. I think they've got one for the Emperor. I just saw them like recently. They were in our hometown. And they are the most divine, beautiful beings. And so, yeah, if you're interested in like tarot songs, check out Yama because it's so good.
I just remembered that several years ago, I attempted to connect the cards with songs themselves, like with well-known songs, and to make it into a way to learn the tarot by using like pop music and rock music. But the music licensing was such a nightmare. I kind of abandoned it because it was like people own the rights to the music, and trying to find who owns the right to the music was a nightmare. It was a fun little, mind exercise to do.
Even like now with, say, Spotify, you could create like playlists for each card, just what inspires you for each card. Yeah. I think it might probably exist.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure I didn't come up with that all by myself. If you could go back in time to that young woman who was so afraid to jump into the unknown and didn't know that she would become the Biddy Tarot and have this gigantic, beautiful business, a successful business, what would you go back in a time machine and tell her?
Do you know, I almost wouldn't want to tell her where it all goes, because I think this is the miracle of life, in that we don't know what we're capable of. We haven't, we're in this kind of amnesia and the forgetting of what we truly can create in our lives. And that is that mystery of life is what propels us forward to keep trying to, I have this experience of I just want to see what happens next, and I keep going to the next step because I'm and then if I finish this thing, then what's going to open up? And so almost would just love to walk with her just through the mystery without giving away, what happens next in this storybook of life.
I love it. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. I so appreciate your time. I know you're on another continent, far away. I'm in the United States, you're in Australia, but I'm so glad that we were able to figure out a time to talk and connect. I think you're so cool. I'm so excited to have you on my podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's been a joy. It's a great way to start a Saturday morning here. And thank you too, for everything that you're doing. I think it's so inspiring to have a podcast really dedicated to women in their midlife and repositioning midlife as something that is magical and positive. Anyway, this is another episode, but just think of how we've been conditioned to think that midlife crisis and all of these bad things happen in midlife. But I don't know, it sounds like you're having this experience. I'm having an experience of this is the most wonderful, opening, blossoming time of our lives. So thank you for putting all of that good energy and these great stories out to support that.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Magical Midlife. I'm Kate Higgins, your host. You can follow me on Instagram at Your Magical Midlife. You can also check out my offerings on my website, which is www.yourmagicalmidlife.com. I offer individualized coaching for women 45 plus who are seekers, dreamers, and out-of-box thinkers. I also offer luxury retreats that include ritual, rites of passage, and ceremony for women 45 and beyond. I'd be so excited to work with you. Also, if you're feeling kind and you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star review as it opens this podcast to a broader audience and keeps me in those pesky algorithms. Thank you so much for your partnership with me. I appreciate you. Have a great week.